have to move. This joint gives me the jitters. Don't sulk. You couldn't expect me to live like this forever. Young, attractive. Or don't you think so anymore? Baby, you know what's wrong? I'm lonesome. I need some security. Give me some security, baby.
Gunn?
Mr. Lockwood.
Won't you sit down?
Thank you.
Excuse me. No calls, Mary. It's very nice to see you, Mr. Gunn, even under the circumstances.
Well, you neglected to mention the circumstances on the phone, Mr. Lockwood.
It's a rather unpleasant business. Murder always is. Last night, a girl named Julie Kent was found in her apartment strangled.
Yes, I read about it in the morning papers.
The police are about to make an arrest.
Really? Who?
My son. He admits having known her. He met her about a year ago at a party. He's been trying to avoid her ever since.
Any particular reason?
The girl was obviously an opportunist. My son's a brilliant law student. He has a fine future. This girl apparently wanted to share that future.
I'm sure the police had more than that.
They found my son's fingerprints in her apartment. Definite evidence that he was there.
That can be incriminating.
I won't minimize, Mr. Gunn. They have a very good case. But I know my boy. He's never lied to me. He swears he didn't do it, and I believe him.
What can I do to help, Mr. Lockwood?
Pull this case apart. Find out who actually did do it.
Well, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you a rather tender question.
Certainly.
Do you really believe your boy didn't do it? Or do you just want to believe him?
I'll tell you how strongly I do believe him. If your investigation simply verifies the police findings, my office will prosecute.
Permit me to thank you, but I don't need it.
Need what?
Your company.
Well, now, that's not very cordial.
Years of intensive research and study have made me this way.
Whatever happened to the jolly and pudgy lieutenant we once knew?
All right. I'll just ignore my work. We'll sit here and engage in some snappy repartee.
Yeah, well, I'd like to, but I'm busy. What do you know about Julie Kent?
She was pretty and she's dead.
Well, let's take it a step further. I understand you're going to make an arrest.
Where did you get that understanding?
My client.
If I were to ask you who your client was, you'd probably tell me it was none of my business.
So don't ask me.
Fine. Why don't we establish a non-aggression pact? I won't ask you, you don't ask me.
Look, Lieutenant, this is important. Word's out you're going to arrest the DA's son.
The word is right.
What, just on the basis of his fingerprints in that apartment?
No, on the basis of a lie. He originally denied even knowing the girl.
All right. Let's say he knew her. Let's say he paid her a visit.
It's when he visited her. The coroner established her death between 8 and 9 last night. This tied it up.
What, a traffic ticket?
Parking ticket. Young Lockwood's car was tagged in a red zone at 8:17. The car was just down the street from the apartment.
Sounds pretty unpromising.
For young Lockwood. Faced with this, he admitted being there, but he still denies killing the girl.
Why haven't you picked him up?
We're waiting for the captain to say so.
Why hasn't the captain picked him up?
The captain is a conservative. He believes that before you arrest the DA's son, you better check out his alibi and have stacks of evidence.
Seems to be stacking up pretty good.
I think so, but I'm in a rather awkward position. I never take it upon myself to intimidate the captain.
You're the conservative, Lieutenant. Well, thanks anyway.
Oh, drop it any time.
Well, whenever I have a moment. Right now, I think I'll go over and talk to young Lockwood.
Yeah, well, you better make it fast.
Come in. I beg your pardon, Neil Lockwood?
Yes?
My name's Gunn.
You're another policeman.
May I sit down?
Sure, go ahead.
Neil, your father's hired me to try and keep you away from policemen, if I can.
Look, I told him everything I know.
Well, I'm afraid they don't believe what you told them. I don't know if you realize it, Neil, but you're very close to being arrested for murder.
But I didn't do it.
Then why did you lie?
Because I knew how it'd look. I was there. She was killed, apparently, just a few minutes after I left. That's all there is to it.
How long had you known her?
I met her about a year ago. She called me. She wanted to see me. She was lonesome. I tried to tell her that I've got exams and I didn't have the time.
Then you didn't see her.
Yes. Don't you understand? I felt sorry for her.
Neil, your father's the district attorney. Have you ever been in court? Would you like to tell that story to a jury? Would you like your life to hang on it?
No. But I don't know what to do. It's the truth.
Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to prove that. What's the address?
What address?
Her apartment.
533 South State, apartment 8. What are you going to do?
I don't know. The police just might have overlooked something.
It's hopeless.
Maybe not, Neil. Attractive, Sidney.
Exquisite.
I can see your point.
Sidney has created another masterpiece. Sorry, I'm overcome.
Yeah, well, do you think you could pull yourself together for a moment, Sidney?
Fade away, child. Now, Peter, what is it you want?
Well, look, Sidney.
You must forgive me. The dichotomy of colors elevate me to such a degree, I exhaust myself. Clarence, change the belt.
Does this do anything to you?
It nauseates me.
Can you tell me what it is?
Brocaded silk, the end of man.
Well, look, Sidney, I'm not asking for an opinion. I'd just like to know what it is and where I can find something like this.
Clarence, not those beads. It's part of a silk scarf.
But these initials, D.E. Now, what is that, a monogram or a label?
PG, you're becoming an unbearable bore. It's part of the haberdasher's label.
Well, do you think you could pull yourself together long enough to tell me which haberdasher?
Clarence, anything but mink. Something airy, a wisp of sable. I could bite my tongue for saying this, but it's undoubtedly Desantis.
DeSantis? What, a DeSantis haberdashery?
An emporium of gaucherie.
It's also a front. He's one of the biggest hoods in town. Eddie DeSantis. He's a big operator, hardly a haberdasher.
My dear boy, he's an incorrigible, but it's not mine to judge.
I think I better have a little talk with him.
If you do, please tell him to stop selling those brocaded silk scarves.
Keep your chins up, Sidney.
Clarence?
Yes, we sell them. How many would you like?
Where's Eddie DeSantis? I'll place my order with him.
He's a very busy man. I conduct his business for him.
That's a dangerous way to live. Once more, where's DeSantis?
Look, mister, I don't know.
Do you want me to get a little worried and impetuous?
I don't like my merchandise manhandled or my help.
Hello, DeSantis.
Hello, Peter. You interested on our new spring line?
Well, I was a little more interested in where you were Thursday night.
And what would that do for you?
It's what it might do for you, like land you in the gas chamber.
What are you trying to put together, Gunn?
You and Julie Kent?
Oh, no. The cops tried that. They came up empty.
They didn't find this. A little item with your label on it.
What's that supposed to prove?
It's probably the murder scarf.
Let me see that.
You could look at it at police headquarters.
You all right? When did you take to conducting your business in alleys?
I got picked up by a couple of hoods.
Belonging to?
Eddie DeSantis.
What was the occasion?
Well, it seems I traced a scarf to him. It's probably the scarf that was used to kill Julie Kent.
In my customary role of Dr. Watson, I am impelled to say, amazing, Holmes. Amazing.
Thank you.
Where did you get that scarf?
Julie Kent's apartment.
I could get you 20 years.
Oh, now, relax, Doctor. I didn't jolly up any of your fingerprints.
Look, I'm going to ask you one more question. I probably know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Where is this mystic scarf?
Gone. The hoods have got it.
Good boy, Tiger.
Now, let me ask you a question. Can you think of any connection between DeSantis and Julie Kent?
They used to go together. She was a singer at the Edwardian Club. He owns it. They broke up about a year ago.
Maybe they reestablished their relationships. At least long enough for him to kill her.
About this scarf, we covered that apartment pretty thoroughly. Exactly where did you find it?
The sink disposal.
I don't know how he could have missed it.
Oh, caution, Lieutenant. Don't drum any of the boys out of the Corps. They weren't tipped off by a leaky faucet.
If you still had that scarf, Eddie DeSantis and I would have a lot to talk about.
You'll still have something to talk about. Looks like he was willing to try and have me killed in order to get it back.
Yeah. Well, that's reasonable.
How's that?
You irritate so many people.
Thank you.
My bartender tells me you've been asking questions.
Yeah, I don't seem to be getting any answers.
Why don't you go down to the depot? Try traveler's information.
Well, I won't find Eddie DeSantis there.
Well, you won't find him here.
He's pretty elusive.
What do you want to see him for?
Well, I was in his haberdashery earlier this evening, and he forgot to validate my parking ticket.
It's funny. Why don't you take him to court?
I've got to find him first.
Edwardian Club. How many? Eddie left. 4, huh? Name, please. Thank you. You still here?
Yeah, well, I'll just hang around and have a drink.
Make it a long drink.
Say. Yes, sir. You're a real whiz-bang with those questions.
The city never sleeps.
You should. We can handle this very nicely.
How did you get in here?
It's very profound. I looked it up in the phone book.
Yes, sir, Lieutenant. You're a Jim Dandy.
Thanks. Now go home. And do us a favor.
Like what?
Don't help us anymore.
You're just going to hang around and wait for DeSantis?
That's the general idea. See you.
I didn't think police officers were supposed to drink on duty.
I'm portraying a role. I'm incognito.
You'll never make it. Those beady eyes, those heavy jowls. You just look like a lieutenant. Hello?
Say goodbye.
You're a hard man to locate, DeSantis.
I like it that way. But now that we found each other, let's have a little talk.
About?
About who's trying to frame me for Julie Kent's murder.
What are you trying to sell? That somebody planted your scarf in that apartment?
I haven't seen her in over a year.
Not until I show up with that scarf. Then you try and have my head taken off to get it back. You should have your associates commit your murders for you, DeSantis. You're too sloppy.
If I had killed her, do you think I'd be silly enough to leave that scarf laying around the apartment?
So you tried to get rid of it. Only you left a piece of it in the disposal.
I had a long chat with the cops. They never mentioned a scarf.
Well, I'm sure when they talk to you again, they'll mention it.
Look, you read the newspapers. I'm under federal indictment. 2 committees are investigating me. With all that hanging over me, do you think I'd be silly enough to go out and kill some girl I threw out over a year ago?
Why don't you plead your case to the police?
Because I want to find out who's trying to hang this rap on me.
You hung it on yourself.
Look, before we break you up, let's try this. If I had killed Julie, I had to get into the apartment. My fingerprints would have been on the doorknob.
Not if she let you in. Wait a minute. Maybe you've got something going for you, DeSantis. How did you get out of that apartment?
So somebody's been pretty messy since we were here last. We took 3 or 4 good prints. They're all smeared now.
I was careful about everything. Did you check the inside knob?
Same thing. Prints are smeared.
You dust the sink faucet? Smeared? Looks like you won yourself one. Somebody's been here since we first dusted.
What are you trying to tell me?
I'm saying that someone came back to that apartment after the murder.
But why?
To plant evidence. Evidence that would lead the police to a very likely candidate, Edie DeSantis.
I just don't understand.
It runs like this. Somebody bought a scarf in DeSantis' shop. Then they went to Julie Kent's apartment. They planted a piece of the scarf in the disposal. Then they loosened a sink faucet, knowing that my attention would be attracted by it.
You?
They knew I'd be there, that I'd check it out.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that he had a very nice legal mind. Something like yours. Only he was a little too cautious in that apartment.
Cautious?
Call it reflex action. Never leave a fingerprint. That's why he used a handkerchief to loosen that sink faucet and to let himself out the door.
Mr. Gunn, you can't base a case on smudged fingerprints.
I'm afraid in this case you can. Your son's still going to be tried for the murder of Julie Kent.
You say Neil went back to her apartment. What for?
To frame another man for the crime.
Why did he kill her? Why?
I think he told you most of it. Everything except the fact that he did it. Mr. Lockwood, before all this happened, did Neil come to you for money?
Yes, he did. He said his college expenses were piling up. I gave him additional money. It wasn't a week before he was asking for more.
Then it should be pretty clear. He needed the money for the girl. She was probably bleeding him. Neil knew what a scandal would do to your reputation as DA, your future political life.
They mustn't arrest him. He has a future. He's just not an ordinary... What am I saying? I'm rationalizing because he's my son. I'm trying to make a deal. I've never done that before in my life.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lockwood. I'm really very sorry.
Memo this date. Pursuant to police findings, this office is herewith issuing a complaint. The people versus Neil Lockwood. Appoint Deputy Prosecutor Willard. He will demand and obtain a verdict of first-degree murder.